Thank you very much indeed, and good evening. I hope you've had a good week. When I was confronted last Saturday by the gigantic Howard Keel, I was reminded of the time a year or so ago when a succession of large actors came on the show, people like Clint Eastwood, Christopher Reeve and Charlton Heston. I drew myself up to my full height and I stared them straight in the navel, but letters started to come in asking, is Aspel a midget? I filed them with the other letters asking if I wore a wig. Next you'll be asking about my teeth. I can assure you, like my hair, they are my own. They cost me a lot of money. This week I'm back in the shadows again with 3 looming lads, none of them much under 7 feet tall. Whatever happened to the Ronnie Corbetts of this world? Tonight it's a bit like those old jokes that began there was an Englishman, an Irishman and a Scotsman, except that you can make that 2 Scotsmen. My guests have all distinguished themselves in the world of sport. They are Edinburgh's most famous golfer and one-time prospect for Manchester United, Sean Connery. Glasgow's biggest contribution to a Scottish schoolboys rugby team, Robbie Coltrane. And firstly, from Limerick, a man who broke his nose many times while playing with the oval ball. He now describes his face as looking like 5 miles of bad country road. Just for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, Richard Harris. Richard, was it in fact the sporting life that affected your features?
My face has been described, as you rightly said, as 5 miles of bad Irish country road, an unmade bed. I broke it playing rugby, car crashes, punch-ups, 9 times. You look sort of...
I'm staring at it. It seems to be remarkably straight, considering all those things.
Well, I finished a mood sporting life, and I went through the windscreen of a car, okay? It was it was a strange situation when I was sitting, actually I was in Dublin, and I was driving a car in Dublin. I didn't drive very well, obviously, because I've been banned for driving for life. It's true. Honestly, it's true. So I was driving down in Dublin, and I had a very stuttery car, a car that kind of stops and starts and stops and starts, which is very awkward, particularly when I don't know how to drive. So I came to a traffic lights, and the traffic light went red, and I stopped the car. And then the traffic light went to orange, and then went to green, and I tried to start the car, and it kind of stopped, understand? And this went on for about 15 minutes. Kept going to green, kept going to red. I start the car again, coming to orange. I got clever. I thought if I start the car in red, I'll have it by the time it gets to green. It's difficult, right? But I did it, and every time I got to green, the car would go stop, okay? There was a big truck behind me, a Guinness truck. You want those big Guinness trucks? Now, I prefer to deal with the Guinness than deal with the guy who drove the car. Or the big truck. So he got out of the truck, huge, big Dubliner, got out of the truck. And he came up, and he knocked at my window. And he said, "Excuse me," he said. "Is there any particular shade of green you're waiting for?" I got the car started, drove down about 6 miles, and crashed. And I went through the windscreen. I broke my nose. So I came back. I had nothing at all, actually. There was a little hole here. So I didn't want to do... So a plastic surgeon had an old photograph of me, and he blew it up very, very big. You can imagine like a 20-foot photograph of Harris. Quite revolting, right? But he said I could replace it exactly as it was before. So he took a bone out of my hip. And like for about a week before, he kept sort of molding a piece of wood to get it the same shape. I went to the operating room. He opened my hip, and he took the bone out of my... This is true, the bone out of my hip, shaped it, and put it back in. I'll show you here. See that scar there?
Yes. Which particular one? That
one?
Well,
Are there 2?
No, so that was the mark of your...
Did he cheat? So that scar there is my hip. See what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So every time that somebody kisses my nose, they don't realize how close they've got to it. There was another wonderful one, actually. It's quite true. Can I talk about My driving exploits, is it okay?
I was just wondering why your head went from side to side when you walked. Now I know it's...
Oh, there's some dirty minds back there. But I was driving... My father, you know, my father was a flour miller, and he bought this big truck, another truck, in Dublin. And I sort of really couldn't drive, and he said to me, I was suffering from tuberculosis and just getting over the tuberculosis period. And so I went to Dublin. He said, you better go to Dublin, Dick, and bring this truck back to the factory. So I said, are you sure, Dad? He said, well, the other brothers are working, you better go. I said, but Dad, I said, you know, my driving ain't too hot. He said, don't worry, just take it very slowly. So I got to Dublin, and of course I got pie-eyed, drunk. I had that habit too. Yeah. A bad driver with drinking, you know, doesn't really correlate things. So I got very, very drunk, and I started off at about 12 o'clock to get the truck back to Limerick, and unfortunately, I started too late. I knew I wasn't going to get back in time. And my father would kill me if I didn't get back in time, because the place opened, the mill opened at 6 o'clock, and I wouldn't get back in time, I thought. So I took a detour. Now, a detour when you're drunk, and on Irish roads as well as that, I mean, it's very difficult. So I got the truck. So I was going at a fair pace, very drunk, driving, and I kind of drove like this, because I also was kind of half blind. So I'm driving like this, and I see a big, this is true, and I see a big bridge in front of me, and the bridge said danger, height 15'5". And I knew the truck was 21 feet. So I thought, Christ, what am I going to do? I said, you know, I can't stop the truck and back, Little Borneen Road. I can't stop it and go back. It'll take hours to get back, and I'll be late. So I thought, if I put my foot down on the accelerator and I raced through, maybe the bridge wouldn't notice. This is a true story, right? So I closed my eyes, and I raced, and I raced, and I heard this big... The whole top was taken off the truck. But I stuck under the bridge, and I couldn't move back, and I couldn't move forward. And there was this truck struck here, and a bridge lying right on top of it. And the Irish policeman always comes at the time you don't want them, the old Garda Síochána. And he was cycling on a bike going to work. And they always have a terrible habit in Ireland of asking you questions in the most ridiculous situations, like, is there something wrong? And I looked at him and I said, no, nothing wrong. I said, I was just delivering this bridge and I forgot the address.
You are, of course, a reformed character. No drink, no raising of hell. Why did you give up? It was health, wasn't it?
Yeah, I drank a lot. And you know, most of my mates who drank with me are dead now, actually, strangely enough. And there's only a few of us kind of hanging on, like O'Toole is hanging on, and I'm just hanging in there with him. But I had a pancreatic problem. My pancreas releases too much insulin if I take a drink, so I stopped.
But how did you stop?
I stopped, I'll tell you when I stopped. I stopped on August the 11th, 11:20, the Jockey Club, Washington. 2 bottles of Chateau Margaux, 1967, $320 a bottle. That's when I finished. But I knew that time it was over. So I ordered 2 bottles of best wine I could. And I drank them. It was wonderful. It was fantastic. But I drank them so slowly. It was like the Last Supper. And I really sort of took great care with it.
Saved it?
I savored it and saved it. But I haven't drunk since.
Would you have stopped anyway?
Well, I would have stopped. I've been in the box.
Yeah.
Unless they hose beer into me and 6 foot down. It wouldn't be a bad idea.
The trouble with being drunk, and I have had the experience, looking at my little face, you wouldn't think so, but it is great, but you do forget. You forget the good times. I mean, how much of your life have you lost in that way?
Well, Richard Burton and I decided one day we were doing a movie together. We decided that we'd been 1/3 drunk, 1/3 getting over a hangover, and 1/3 sleeping. So there wasn't too much of a life to live at all. So you'd forget. I have met people I've spent weeks with I didn't know. When I was doing Camelot here in town, in fact, I had a message from someone saying you spent a week with us in Leeds, and they said, would you care to meet them? And the little girl, they said, this little girl, you had her in your lap and your knees and so forth. So I said, well, come up. I don't remember them at all. But they told me the story that I'd been in a pub and in London, and I got thrown out of it. So I was so angry, I thought I'd get a drink probably on a train. So I got onto a train and got off where it stopped. That was Leeds. It was very late. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I was wandering down the street. I saw a little light in the window, and I threw pebbles up the window. And this woman came and said, "Yeah, what you want?" And I said, "Can I have a drink?" And she should have said, "This isn't Lourdes, you know. If you're looking for a cure, go somewhere else." But she recognized me and said, "Come on in." And I spent, I think, 4 days there. And I don't remember them at all. Also, you forget things like, I used to forget lines on stage when I was doing Camelot. That's the worst. I mean, it's okay to forget the past, people you got engaged to, people you're supposed to marry. He says, "Hi, you remember me? You gave me a ring. What? What's your name?" And they introduce themselves to you in the street, and you had a big love affair you can't remember. I mean, that's tragic, isn't it?
Well, it may have only lasted one night, of course.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it, Mike. That's why you're looking good. But I'm gonna tell you what But sometimes it's terrifying because sometimes you forget lines. I remember once I was doing Camelot, and I was kind of very hungover and very tired. And I have this line to say to Guinevere. I said to Guinevere, I said, "Jenny, don't you sometimes wish that you were not born a queen?" And she's supposed to say sometimes. I was very tired, I had a hangover, and I couldn't think. And I looked at her and I said, "Jenny, aren't you glad I wasn't born a queen?" Now, people didn't respond as quickly as you did. There was a dead hush for a second while people took in. And then I looked at her and she started to laugh. And then I said, I guess that's the reason why you and Lance are having an affair, right? And of course, then the audience got it.
That was the end of that one. Now you've given up, perforce, but you have given up.
I want you to know that I gave up the White House to be here. I was invited by President Reagan to be at the White House yesterday, to sit with him at his table yesterday. And I said, "I can't, I'm doing the Mike Aspel show." So he wired back and said, "Why couldn't he do the show?" And I went there.
We only have stars on this show.
He's got an equity card.
Thank you for that. We're honored. Is life a bore now without the booze?
Well, it's a different kind of life. I find I live a lot to myself now. I mean, I used to be, I suppose, very gregarious before, not knowing who I was with. You know what I mean? And never remembering who I'd sort of parlayed with. I mean, it was great to wake up in the morning and find what you did the night before in the newspaper. The newspapers always recounted my life, only but for Fleet, God love Fleet Street, because I wouldn't know how I spent half my life.
You hadn't filmed for 5 years, but you said yes to this Maigret thing. Why did you agree to do that?
What happened was that I had read 60 books of the Maigret books written by George Simenon. John Huston introduced me to them years ago. And I had read them, in 1972, in fact. And I had read the first one. He gave me the first one. I read it, and I was enthralled by it. Enthralled by the writing. Enthralled by the character. Having then read 60 books, I began to play, as an actor, to play Maigret in all of these books as a part of a fantasy. And I thought I played him rather brilliantly. In my head, that was. You know what I mean? I was solving all the crimes and so forth. And then when I read that they were going to do it, I thought I wouldn't mind doing it. I might just make a comeback for myself and do this one-off. And so we approached the producer, who was very excited about, am I going to do it? They said, "We haven't got the money to pay you." You know, and I said, money wasn't an issue. I remember Sean Connery, who's your next guest, once saying on television, "The part's the important thing. A deal can always be made," which he's quite right. And so we made a deal, and I did it, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed playing that particular part. It doesn't necessarily mean I want to make any more movies.
You're obviously not a lonely man, obviously, but do you prefer, and do you intend to stay a free man?
You're talking about marriage?
I am.
Well, indeed, freedom is freedom. I mean, I think marriage is, no, yes, I am. Yes, I should stay, yes, I will. Michael, I will. I'm saying you're the first to hear it. This is the first to hear it. Remember, you heard it on the Aspel show. Harris is not going to get married again.
I'm just making note of the time you've said that. Right,
okay.
Fine. We're going to meet a fellow rugby fanatic of yours, Sean Connery, a little later. This man once creamed the opposition when he toured Canada as a schoolboy, Scottish schoolboy, of course, but he was described in America sometime later as the sexiest fat man on the Lower East Side. It is Robbie Coltrane. Well, there you are. The score so far, 1 Irishman, 1 Scot. Let's keep the Celtic connection going. Here is a Scot with Irish connections. A warm welcome back to Sean Connery. Oh, that was a close shave. We all meet, as I was saying just before we went to the commercial break, for the Academy Awards tomorrow, and you are up for 2, aren't you? Do you actually enjoy ceremonies?
Well, this is the first time. I've never been naughty for my patients, I must say, but what very few people know is that I made a pact with the devil, not for my soul, but for my hair. It's taken a few years, but anyway. I'm looking forward to it.
One of your nominations was for the film The Untouchables, and that was another of your physically demanding experiences, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't so much, really. The most laborious aspect was the horse riding, which I only do spasmodically in films, and during the process I tore the cartilage in my knee, so I had to go off and have orthoscopic surgery.
Orthoscopic?
Yeah, well, they put 2 holes in your knee and a 3rd hole where they put the camera in. And they can take out, with local anesthetic, which I didn't have, I had major anesthetic, you know. Where they put the camera in and, you know, there's no blood in there. It's the Japanese that perfected it. And they cut away the percentage of the cartilage that's gone and suck it out like a vacuum cleaner. And they give you a video of it. It's like a peach. I was told. I haven't looked at mine.
Oh, we have a clip of that. Shall we see this? Yeah. I don't think so. Are you squeamish? Do you have a phobia?
Oh, yeah. Oh, very. I'm terrified of needles, which, in fact, the first cartilage operation I had was because I knelt on a carpet with the eye of the needle was up with the thread in it, and it went in my knee, and it took for ages, you know, to get out.
That would put you off.
Mm-hmm. And much older than Robbie here. Smaller, but older. They had the diphtheria epidemic in Scotland, and everybody had to go and have these inoculations, which were in 3 stages, and apparently they got worse and worse. You know what it's like when you're a kid. And I remember standing behind this girl called Cathy Dugan. I'm sure she's probably watching the show now. And she was so big, and she had this arm like my leg, and they put the needle right in the bicep. And that was the last thing I remember. And I've been the same with needles ever since.
A lot of people share that. What makes you fellas squeamish? Anything at all?
Blood, don't really like that. And anything to do with eyes. You know, when they have these... remember that thing they had at the hospitals? They had an eye operation in that. And it was about dinner time. They always put it on about 7 o'clock. Sitting in, getting you into your spuds and go, now, what we're going to do is Mrs. Wilkins has got an actuator. We're going to remove it. And see, they start off with this big green thing with a tiny little slit in it. And you're sort of half interested. The way you are, you sort of can't help quite looking at it. And then it goes in and in and in. And then you see this... The guy starts going... That's it. I'm off. Change channels. I can't bear it.
Richard, do you share that kind of thing?
An empty glass. They make me squeamish.
Yes, it's...
But good old Sean, huh? The camera inside his knee, not just on his face.
Yes, I know.
Inside him.
The knee is going to get an Oscar, it's obvious.
But I must say, I must say your performance, playing an Irishman, I thought it was really wonderful.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was
you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
You're a macho man, of course, but you've never been a wild one in the sense that we've been discussing, have you?
No, I'm much too secretive. Much too secretive, I am.
You and Richard have worked together. You've always greet each other very affectionately.
Yes.
Was either of you a bad influence on the other?
Well, he's stopped drinking. I haven't. we did start rehearsals, actually, in Molly Maguire's, and Marty Ritt, who, a very dear, sweet man, an excellent director. In actual fact, the film was not a success, like a good 60% of the movies one makes, or maybe more, I don't know. But we went, they had a very serious discussion and everything, and the major complaint that we had, I think you'd agree, that when they're dealing with a serious subject, the Americans, they tend to be serious. And we are much more cynical and more world-wise than that, you know, and see the humorous side of things, or at least attempt to see it. Otherwise, what's the point? You know it's serious, for Christ's sake. What are you going to do? And so we broke for lunch after a lot of Stanislavski diatribe, and we went to the bar, and we came back and sort of pissed around like we were drunk. I thought Mary was going to have a heart attack.
I must tell you one more story about Sean. We're doing the Molly Maguires, and I had a hit record out at the time, Come MacArthur Park. So Sean was sick of it. Sean kept saying, I hear it going. He said, I can't believe this. He said, I drive to work, it's on every 5 minutes. I come to work, there are kids in the street playing it. He gets very upset, you see. So we went to a party in my house. And somebody says, where's Richard Harris? And Sean gave a great remark. He said, he's upstairs with a needle in his hand, running around his record.
Not everyone's got an aversion to needles, that's all right. Getting back to the things that might wipe the smile from your face, it was embarrassment. Is it, if a woman makes the first move, this has happened to you many times, I'm sure, how do you handle that sort of situation? Do you disapprove?
Which part of her, you mean?
Move, approach.
She makes the first move.
Yes. Is that all right with you?
Oh, perfectly. I think it's... yes, I think cut to the chase.
Well, I mean, traditionally, men are supposed to be frightened of women who sort of come on strong, but I don't find that. Maybe it's just because, you know, things have changed so much in with my dress. Well, it's a good conversational opener. Where did you get your stilettos? Funny you should say that, you know. No, but I mean, you're supposed... I mean, I found that the first time I went to New York, to go, say, you're cute. And I used to... I mean, Scotland, well, cute was sort of wee kids and dogs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's a cute kid, that, isn't it? So oh, they used to be dog. What's your name, your dog? The cute dog. And I was quite offended. I thought, who's cute? Yeah, the way we do. I discovered it meant something quite different later on.
But women can say, get lost to a fella, but you can't imagine saying, get lost to a woman who made an approach you didn't welcome.
I remember when I first went to America, and I was at one of these rather select little dinners, and there was about 8 people, and it was candlelit and everything, and I was sitting next to a rather attractive lady who will be nameless, and she had... and I was talking, like, to you here, and she was on my left, like, right here. Suddenly, my hand is there, and I feel the hand going on mine. It was candlelit and everything, so I didn't move my hand. I kept talking, thinking, well, I'll play this very cool. And then suddenly I felt something slipped into my hand, so I put it in my pocket. I kept talking, and when I looked back, she had a cigarette in her mouth. She'd given me a lighter. And I thought she'd give me a little thing with a note and an address.
One of the great consuming passions of your life, as we know, is golf. Scotland is the mecca, of course, isn't it, for many golfers?
Well, yes, but around the world, I mean, I think it's probably retains one's sanity. It makes you insane at sometimes, but it's still the greatest game. I had terrific enjoyment, the people I've met, places I've been. And sometimes I perhaps have wasted or spent more time than... And I would always... It would come on a par with any major decision. And it would frequently win.
Made you a happy man.
Yes, in that respect, yes. I had a wonderful major success, which is relevant only to myself last year in St Andrews, where I played 1 week every day, excuse me, morning and afternoon, to reach the final of the Jubilee Vase to win it, giving a guy 10 shots. And most of the guys that win it are all real top-class golfers, and I really came to it so much later in my life. And I'm going back this year to defend it.
Excellent. Well, let's hope you have as much luck as you do tomorrow. Because we're all going, as I say, for the third time.
Yes, we're all going to be there.
We're going to be there tomorrow night for the British Academy Awards, so fingers crossed. It's been a great pleasure looking up to all of you. Next week, my guest is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Thank you very much indeed. Sean Connery. Thank you very much. Robbie Coltrane. And Richard Harris. And thanks for your company. Until next week, good night.